Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're going to tackle a truly fascinating, kind of mind-bending biological puzzle. Have you ever stopped to actually think about what happens to the literal physical weight of the food and drink you consume? Just imagine you're holding a standard 1-cup glass of whole milk. It feels heavy in your hand, right? It weighs in at a very specific 244 grams. But once that heavy liquid enters your body, where does all that mass actually go? Does it just slip right through the pipes? Well, today we are going to systematically track every single gram of that milk to solve what I like to call the mass balance mystery.
Here's our roadmap for the investigation. We're going to start with the mass balance mystery, then wade into the great water pool, break down the sugars, fats, and proteins, debunk the fecal misconception, and finally reveal the invisible exit. Okay, let's dive into this.
Section 1. The Mass Balance Mystery, the 244-gram clue.
So, there's this really strange cognitive dissonance we all experience when we consume something heavy. We sort of instinctively assume a hefty liquid is going to result in an equal amount of immediate waste, but our bodies are way more complex than simple plumbing. Our 244-gram mystery isn't just one single thing, it's a complex mixture. Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is how we can shatter this 150-calorie entity into its fundamental macronutrient parts. We're looking at 215 grams of water, 12 grams of lactose, 8 grams of fat, 8 grams of protein, and a couple of grams of minerals. To really understand where the milk goes, we kind of have to play detective and track each component separately.
Section 2. The Great Water Pool, not a direct pipeline.
We're going to start with the absolute biggest piece of the puzzle first. Nearly 90% of that glass of milk is just pure water, 215 grams of it, compared to a tiny 29-gram sliver of total solids. Because it's water, it requires almost no digestion. It literally just moves from your stomach into your small intestine and gets rapidly absorbed straight into the bloodstream. But here is the massive misconception. That water doesn't immediately become urine. It doesn't just bypass your system in a straight line. Instead, it merges seamlessly into your body's vast, already existing water pool. We're talking your blood plasma, the fluids surrounding your cells, and the water inside the cells themselves.
Your kidneys are constantly regulating that massive internal pool. So, if we somehow artificially tagged and followed just the 215 grams of water from this specific cup, you'd see it actually takes a bunch of different escape routes over time. Yes, a middle estimate of about 150 grams will eventually contribute to your urine output, but that is just one route. 30 to 70 grams will evaporate directly off your skin or leave as water vapor in your breath, some is lost in sweat, and roughly 5 to 15 grams ends up as stool water. It's a highly dynamic distribution.
Section 3. Sugars, fats, and proteins, the microscopic journey. Now that we've accounted for the water, we need to shift our detective work to that remaining sliver, the 29 grams of solids. Let's track the 12 grams of milk sugar, also known as lactose. An enzyme called lactase splits this sugar into glucose and galactose. Almost all 12 grams are absorbed through the intestinal wall and travel straight to your liver. Now, if your body doesn't burn it immediately for energy, it gets stored up in your liver and muscles as glycogen. But here is an absolutely amazing biological quirk. Glycogen binds to water. For every gram of glycogen stored, your body holds on to several grams of water. This means digesting and storing those 12 grams of dry sugar can actually cause your body weight to temporarily increase by significantly more than just 12 grams. Crazy, right?
Let's move to the fat and see how this builds. Meanwhile, the 8 grams of milk fat takes a wildly different, very unique detour. Down in the small intestine, it's broken down, absorbed, and literally rebuilt into triglycerides. These are then packaged into these special little particles called chylomicrons. Unlike sugars or proteins, which head straight into the blood, much of this packaged fat actually enters your lymphatic system first. It travels all through your lymph nodes before finally dropping into your bloodstream, where those fatty acids are either burned by your muscles for energy or tucked safely away into your fat cells for later.
Section 4. The Fecal Misconception, the Missing Mass.
All right, we've tracked the water, the sugar, and the fat. Now we've got to trace the final solid components, the protein and the minerals, which leads us to the ultimate mass balance discrepancy. Whole milk gives us about 8 grams of protein, mostly casein and whey. Your stomach acid unfolds these proteins and enzymes break them down into amino acids, which are readily absorbed. But unlike fat or sugar, your body doesn't actually have a dedicated storage tank for protein. There are no protein cells just waiting to swell up. Instead, these amino acids enter a circulating pool, ready to be immediately used to build muscle, create enzymes, or repair tissue.
Because there's no dedicated storage tank, if those amino acids aren't actively needed, the body simply strips away their nitrogen. So, the crucial point is this. Those 8 grams of protein contain roughly 1.2 grams of nitrogen. Your liver converts that excess nitrogen into urea, ships it through the blood to your kidneys, and you pee it out. The remaining carbon skeleton of the protein is then just burned for energy.
Which brings us to a frankly staggering realization. You consumed a heavy 244 grams glass of milk, but if you look at the actual solid waste directly attributable to that cup, you only produce about 1 to 3 grams of dry fecal matter. Let that sink in for a second. 244 grams in, 1 to 3 grams of solid waste out. Why? Because milk contains absolutely zero dietary fiber. Almost everything, the water, the lactose, the fat, the protein, is incredibly well absorbed by your biology.
Section 5. The invisible exit. The final revelation.
So this leaves us with one final, glaring mystery. If only 1 to 3 grams exit as solid waste, and the water accounts for our urine and sweat, where do the actual physical masses of the burned fat, protein, and sugar go? They can't just vanish into thin air, right? Well, actually, scratch that. They kind of do. Check out this quote. When nutrients are burned, they don't simply disappear. Much of their mass eventually leaves your body through your lungs as CO2. And this brilliantly illustrates the major twist. When your body burns the carbon skeletons of milk fat, lactose, or protein for calories, those molecules are oxidized. That physical mass is converted into carbon dioxide gas, which travels through your blood, into your lungs, and you literally exhale the weight of your food right out into the room.
So let's reassemble our mass balance puzzle and look at the whole picture. That heavy 244-gram cup of milk doesn't just run straight through you. Its water becomes your blood and sweat before leaving as urine and evaporation. Its solids are harvested for tissue repair, and the rest is completely burned for energy. The actual exits for the physical weight of that milk are scattered all across your biology. Urine, exhaled CO2, water vapor from your skin, and just a tiny, tiny fraction of feces.
It is a beautifully efficient, highly dynamic system that proves you are, for sure, a walking, talking, breathing engine. Every single time you exhale, you are quite literally shedding the mass of the fuel you consumed earlier. So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Next time you sit down, finish a heavy, satisfying meal, and feel that weight in your stomach, ask yourself, how much of it will you simply breathe away? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you next time.